Hello, and welcome to the October edition of the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club. Our book this month is The Wonderful Spinning. Yeah, getting as close as I can. And Tillie Walden, the wonderful author of The Wonderful Spinning, is sitting here in the wonderful chair to talk to us about this book and about cartooning and creativity.
Sure am.
So, comics.
Ugh.
Why comics? What's it with comics?
I did fine art in high school. Fine art meaning like I did moody self-portraits and like did still lifes because art teachers forced me to. Yeah. And I really hated it. And I really thought that art wasn't for me because I did not like that kind of art. I didn't like this whole idea that you just had one chance. You had one image that had to then represent everything for you. And it wasn't until I was 16, and this isn't in the book, but it is an experience I had. I did a class with Scott McCloud, a 2-day workshop. Wow. I did a 2-day workshop in Los Angeles. My dad can like see the future. I don't know. He was like, Tillie, I want to go to Los Angeles with you so you can do this 2-day workshop with Scott McCloud. I was like, Dad, first of all, why? Second of all, why? And he was like, I think like he knew. He's like, for whatever reason, he saw that I had potential in comics, even though I'd never really made them. And I went to this class, and I made my first comic there. I still have it. It's awful. Mm-hmm. And I left that class wanting to be a cartoonist. Yeah. It was as simple as that. And I remember Scott was like, you're talented. And I was like, like, if this guy believes in me, then I can believe in myself. And I literally like attacked comics with ferocity when I went home. And I'd never had so much fun in my life. I loved it so much. It clicked with me right away. And it was easy. Like, it was easy to produce a lot of work quickly for me. Yeah. And when I was painting and sculpting and doing that other stuff, it was hard. It was like I was forcing myself to do it. And as soon as I started making comics, it was like breathing. Yeah. I found my thing. I'm lucky enough to have found my thing, the thing that works for me.
So why did your dad think that comics would be your thing? Or what?
He bought me comics. Okay. He bought me manga, and he bought me Little Nemo and Slumberland, and he got me all this really cool stuff. He had great taste. I realize now I'm so lucky. What if he had bad taste? I would be a very different cartoonist. But he bought me these really influential books. And I guess he connected the fact that I read comics and that I was also an artist and saw that there could be a connection there. I did not see a connection. Right. I thought liking comics and drawing were separate entities. Right. And he really liked Scott McCloud. And I think he wanted me to just meet a cool, like, talented artist like Scott and thinker. And I'm so glad he did.
Understanding Comics was out at that.
Yeah. Well, this was when I was 16. So, oh God. 19. I can't do that math. I graduated high school in 2014, so 2012.
Okay. Yeah. So yes,
it was when the world was ending.
It was out.
Yeah, it was out. Yeah.
I read. Scott sent me a pre-press copy of Understanding Comics.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, because that's how old I am.
Wow.
Wow. I thought, wow, this is really. This is an amazing book that it's not just comics, but it's also this amazing textbook, and it works on like 15 different levels. And, yeah. The guy had a brain, or has a brain.
No, he does. And understanding comics at the time was too complicated for me, but making comics, that book really clicked for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, understanding comics, there were too many words. I have trouble reading sometimes, so I usually need things that have more pictures. And making comics, I didn't read any of the words, but I looked at his visuals. And I learned a lot from that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, understanding comics, I was like, this is a book for like grown-ups.
Yeah, I know it very much.
Not for me. Not for me.
What about Reinventing? Did you ever read Reinventing?
Never touched it. No.
Yeah, that's a weird book.
God only knows. Yeah. But in a way, I'm glad I didn't read it because, when you read someone's work and then you meet them, it's this bizarre relationship because you have this history already. And with Scott, it was like I had only kind of glanced at making comics, and then I met him, and I really got to get to know him as a person before I realized really who he was. Yeah. And that was really special. Yeah. I mean, I remember going out to lunch with him and just being like, who is this guy? Like, what am I doing? And he was lovely. Yeah. And it's funny because now I run into him at cons all the time. It's just funny to be.
Does he remember you? Does he remember
you know,
that
no, we laugh about it because he doesn't remember me. He doesn't remember that class. He's taught so many of those classes.
Sure.
But every time I see him, he's like, I'm trying to remember that class. And it's like, don't worry about it. It's cool. It was big for me. It wasn't big for you. Yeah. It's okay.
It's funny because you can have these experiences where you touch people, like in a really profound way of making their creativity happen.
I know.
And to you, it's just like you're just being nice, like a normal human.
I know.
And they take it as like, oh my God.
It's life-changing. Well, and it's weird, like with this book, I don't know how this book is really affecting people because for the most part, I don't read reviews. I don't really read any of the reactions online. I don't really have any interest. And for the most part, I meet people at bookstores and festivals and things, and that gives me some idea. But it's also like this book could be hugely influential for someone and I'll never meet them. And it's this bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Where we don't always know how much we're affecting other people.
Yeah. So when you're creating a book like this, are you thinking about this potential reader?
No, never. You can't. Okay, no. I don't think about the reader. I don't think about the publisher. All I think about is who am I? What do I want to say? And how can I best say it? Yeah. No, you cannot let the reader in because if you start to realize that this story you're making is going to become public, all this fear and expectation starts to come into you. And then you're letting other people influence your work. And you cannot let that happen because when you're making something, it needs to be the most you it can be. You know, it has to scream Tillie for me. That's where the power in your comics comes from. It's from you. And so if I'm going to make something that is distinctly my own, especially a memoir, you know, and it was complicated because I really didn't focus on how everyone in my life and the people in this book would like react to it because I knew if I started to think through, you know, what would my coach think? Then I would probably change how I was writing my coach. Right. I needed to write my coach the way that I remember my coach. You know, I can only ever be honest to myself and be, try and be authentic to my own experience. And so I can only stay in my little realm. Yeah. And thank God for editors, because if you stay in your own little realm, your book is not going to be that great. Sure. But you have editors and they help cultivate your thing, you know. Wow. I can't edit myself. Yeah. It's impossible. Yeah. Every experience is too personal. Yeah. Whenever my editor would like cut a scene, I was like, how dare you? That happened to me. And she's like, Tillie, whoa, take it easy. Yeah. But it's just so helpful. Yeah.
Well, you've run really far out ahead of where I thought the conversation would already be.
Really? So, yeah, I tend to just
I like this because this gives me a lot of questions to ask 10 minutes from now. But I wanna go back to
backwards.
Kind of the earliest comics and
my early days.
Yeah, no. What were you reading when you were before you met Scott McCloud?
Oh,
right. Like what was your earliest influences? What do you?
Oh, it was Tezuka. It was manga.
Really?
Yeah, okay. It was almost entirely manga. I didn't touch mainstream comics ever, and I didn't really read many North American comics.
Strips?
Nope, no strips.
So no Calvin and Hobbes?
No, yeah. Like I knew it existed.
Sure.
You know, I'd read a couple, but not really. I didn't read the newspaper funnies. I didn't even really know what a newspaper was, to be fair. No, it was all manga. Okay. I read Buddha when I was, that was the most influential comic on me. I was 10.
Oh.
I was 10.
That's a.
I also got to see like some naked ladies, which was like super exciting for me. So that was also very influential. But yeah, no, reading Buddha and then expanding into other manga, like Yoshihiro Togashi, who did Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter, is another huge influence. But it really is, manga is what connected with me. And I only really liked black and white comics. I hated color because I realize now it was so often overdone. And kind of, it made it hard to see the lines. What I loved about manga is you could see what the artist was doing. You could see their lines. You could see their personality. And I just thought the simplicity of black and white art was so awesome. Yeah. And all this other stuff that was like full color and like kind of in my face was way too overwhelming for me. Yeah. And I still really want to do like a black and white book, but it is very hard to do that nowadays because everyone thinks color is more marketable. Right. But that's a whole other tirade that I won't go off on now. But if we're talking about my early influences, it's manga. Yeah. Plain and simple.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have immediately grasped that from looking at your work.
Yes. I mean, if you look at my webcomic, which I did after spinning, I think my manga influence comes out more in On a Sunbeam. But it is, I learned to draw realistically when I was in high school. It was pushed into me. I remember a teacher yelling at me because my drapes weren't accurate enough. And like that kind of stuff sinks into you. I really thought that learning to draw realistically was the only path. But then when I, did my class with Scott and I discovered comics, this realistic technical ability I had merged with my love of manga to form that style. That's where it comes from. And it comes out more in some drawings than others.
Sure. Absolutely. So, it is high school in Texas, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a little surprised that there's fine arts instruction. Because I can tell you, as the father of a high school age boy, if he had just gone to public high school, there would not be very much arts instruction at all. Well, it's all. This is California. You would think here's where we'd just be nothing but arts instruction.
Well, it's this really kind of hilarious situation where in Austin, Texas, there is a public school called McCallum High School, and they happen to have this program within the public high school called the Fine Arts Academy, and it is actually one of the finest art programs in the country. And it is very difficult to get in. Do you want to know what you have to do to get into this?
Yes, I do.
Oh my God. I can't believe they put me through this. They sit you at this table, you lay out your portfolio in front of you, and then they give you a piece of paper and they say, draw your hand. And as you're drawing your hand, they interview you about your art.
Nice.
And so they're like, talk about your artist statement at this piece. And I'm like, okay. And then they're like, keep drawing your hand. I was like, okay. And it has to be like a realistic hand, and you have to speak well in your art, and you have to have a whole portfolio. But I got in. And it was me and this like group of 20 kids within this public school that we were the most like competitive, insane bunch of talented artists. And at the beginning, I was not the best. And by the end, I was doing pretty good. I had risen to the top. Yeah. But it was this interesting environment to learn to make art in because it was so competitive. It was very much like skating in a way. We all really wanted to be the best. We were entered into competitions every year, scholastic art competitions, and it was a lot.
So it sounds like competition has been a big part of your life, like since you were
little. I mean, and I'm also a cellist, and I used to compete with solo cello performance. And I used to do impromptu speech competitions where they would put me on a stage and give me a topic. I have to make up a speech right off the bat. And I went all the way to the state level. Oh, and I went to the state level for speed drawing. Champ, obviously. Right. But yeah, no, competition has defined my entire existence. Yeah. I'm so used to it, and I'm trying so hard to get away from it now. Because I think it's kind of toxic.
Yeah.
I want to just do something because I love it and because it's fun, and not because anyone should ever have to win.
Yeah.
But that's been my entire life.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about comics, right, is that aren't.
So you say that.
I mean, there's like an Eisner Award or something, right? But
no, but you're right. It is different. The only thing that
matters is doing the work.
It's true, and that has been really good for me. Although it is funny, like I've been producing a lot of work really quickly, partially because that's how I work, and also partially because with comics, what you do is you make the work, and so I want to do that to like the biggest and best ability that I can. So it is this strange thing. I should talk this all over with you. There's so much here. I'm serious. Like God only knows. Yeah. But it is. People ask me how skating influenced the comics that I make, and I talk a lot about how I learned all my work ethic from skating because I don't want to draw every day. Do you know how boring drawing gets sometimes? It's awful. But I draw every day, and I draw these graphic novels, and I get my work done, and I never miss a deadline. And it's because I skated. It's because I learned how to do something, how to get through those patches when you don't want to do something, but you still need to. Yeah. It's crazy. I'm glad I skated because of it. I'm able to do stuff like this. I mean, I drew spinning in 3 months.
Wow.
It's fast.
Wow.
I know.
This is like 400 and something pages.
It was longer. They cut stuff out. We cut stuff out.
Yeah. Wow.
But it was like I attacked it like a feral animal. But
yeah, it's like 3 pages a day. Yeah.
And I think someone has to do that. The thing is, I remember one day where I drew like 20 pages.
Wow.
And then one day where I drew like 1 page. Yeah. So it was a little uneven. Yeah. And there was one point where I like actually sequestered myself in a hotel, did nothing draw. That was great. It's really fun. I got room service. Oh, that sounds accurate.
Wow,
yeah, no, because there we go, 13 pages a day about. So it's a lot.
That's crazy.
I know. I don't even know how I did it.
That's crazy.
Well, but to be fair, the spinning,
and they're good pages. The
spinning originals are almost at the size of the book.
Okay.
So they're very small.
Yeah.
And that really helped me draw quickly.
Sure.
Because they're not like these giant goddamn originals.
Yeah.
But it was fast.
Yeah.
But it needed to be fast because otherwise I would have gotten stuck. Because when you're writing a memoir and you're writing your own memories, it is so like endlessly traumatic and difficult to dig all this stuff up on yourself. If I had taken the time to dwell on these memories, I just would have broken down and I wouldn't have finished.
Yeah.
But the momentum of needing to get this book done and needing to get the story out in one go, it helped. It meant that I didn't dwell. I really moved forward. And that's the biggest hump for most cartoonists is moving forward. Or for anyone.
Sure.
It's you have an idea, but what do you do with it? And when you have that momentum, I always think of inertia. An object in motion stays in motion.
Yeah.
And that completely applied. So I'm getting really chatty.
No, this is good. This is good. Like I said, I could talk to you, I think, for 2 or 3 hours here if we I'm going to go backwards again.
Go backwards.
No, I am because so high school, and then did you go to college for art?
Well, kind of. I don't have a degree. I went to the Center for Cartoon Studies.
Okay.
CCS.
Yeah.
I went straight out of high school. It's just a 2-year comics program in Vermont. Comics summer camp is what I call it, and it was perfect. I was the youngest one there, which was hard at times because everyone. I actually liked that I got to interact with people who were older than me. I thought that was good for me, but I also it felt like there was a target on my back. Right. Because I came into the school already a pretty formed cartoonist. Within the first year, I was working on my first graphic novel. Right. And then by the time I graduated, I had published 3 books and I had another book coming out and I had an agent and my career had started already.
So you already had that competitive thing with your CCS class.
Yeah, but that's always happened at CCS. Yeah. Every class talks about how there is a competitive vibe to the school. Right. Because you go there and it's this small group of talented people in a tiny town in Vermont. Of course, and also the teachers there are so incredible. Jason Lutz, it makes me think of Jason, who did Berlin, this wonderful comic. We all want to impress Jason so much. Jason is kind of the mother figure of our school. And so we were just all trying so hard to make something great for Jason, to make him proud.
So when they teach you at CCS, how much do they teach you about, obviously they're teaching you how to make a comic, but how much?
Well, it wasn't so much teaching you how to make a comic, it was make a comic. And then let's talk about it.
So how much did they teach you about making a career?
The whole second year is you work on a thesis, and spinning was my thesis at CCS. Okay. And at the same time, sort of in tandem, you're learning everything about the career stuff. Although for me, it was funny because it was like they were talking about like how to get an agent, and I had like just signed with an agent, and I was like, I'm going to stay quiet about this because some of it was a little like I had sort of already passed that point, but they do talk about a lot. They talk about promoting your work on social media. Right. They talk about contracts. They talk about all the publishers. They talk about agents, self-publishing, web comics. Yeah. Oh yeah. And Steve Bissett covers a lot of that. Alec Longstreth came in and helped out. It was vital. The only reason I have business cards is because of CCS. Right, they were like, Tillie, make a business card, make a website. You have to make a website when you're there. They really focused on it, which is important because you can't just learn how to make comics. You have to learn what to do with them.
Sure. Because unlike a lot of other media, it seems like an artist to salesperson.
You do. You have to promote yourself. And that's very difficult for us as artists. I think it's difficult for anyone because it's like you have to take something that you're maybe unsure of, put it in front of people and say, this is good. And that's so scary when you're not fully formed. And I wasn't fully formed. And even now I don't really feel fully formed. But you have to take that step. And in a way, it's really empowering to start to do that because you learn to look at your own work and say, this is worth something. This is worthy. This is valid. I can put this in front of people and I can say, this is worth your time. And that's not only good for your self-promotion, it's good for yourself. Because you have to be positive about your work. I'm like ridiculously positive about my comics. You know, any comic I've made, even the shitty ones I was making when I was 15, those are totally great.
Yeah.
Because that is the best I could do at 15.
Yeah.
And I was making the best 15-year-old comics that I could do. And there's no point ever comparing yourself to other people or comparing, you know, my 21-year-old self to my 18-year-old self.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are different. I had different skill sets at those ages.
Yeah.
You just have to, God, I get kind of emotional about it because so many cartoonists are so negative.
Sure.
And they're so self-hating.
Right.
And it feels like it's just so unfortunate because I can't imagine working in that kind of condition. Working and looking at your art and thinking it's not good enough.
Right.
Every day when I work, I look at it and I think, this is good. I like what I do.
I think it's just cartoonists, though.
It is. It's true. It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people and a lot of different arts and a lot of things that aren't art, too.
Yeah.
Think that they aren't good enough and they can't do it. It's interesting that they're almost always wrong, you know?
I know. It is. And I don't understand. It's like, when do you hit that point where you finally say, okay, enough is enough? Like, I'm actually going to accept that I'm good at what I do. And it's important to remember that saying that what you do is good does not mean there isn't room for improvement.
Oh, sure, of course.
There's always room for improvement, but there's also always room for positivity and love. Oh, I wish everyone was nice to themselves, but they're not.
Yeah, no, it's super true. Published, you have several books that came out.
I have 4 books.
This is the 4th.
This is the 4th.
Yeah. Doug, would you mind? Can I borrow your copies for a minute?
Come on, Doug.
Because Doug's awesome. Doug is like the one guy who has copies of these books, which I think I overheard you saying to him were like selling for like $100.
No, just the first one because the original edition is out.
Right,
it's out of print.
Yeah.
And so people want it, and it's like, oh, I don't have one.
Yeah. So we have these earlier books.
Yes.
Which Doug has.
1,
you should be jealous of.
2, 3.
Yeah. So how did those come about?
How
old were you?
18, 19, 19.
Wow.
20.
Yeah.
And then it came out when I was 21 because you have to like wait a year before your book comes out.
So you're still in high school. First book?
No, I was at CCS. I was at CCS when I was 18.
Okay.
And then I turned 19 there and did these 2.
Right.
It happened because of Twitter.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I started putting my work on Twitter. I got an email from this British guy named Ricky. He was like, hello. I can't do a British accent. I'm not going to do it. Dangerous, Tillie. Dangerous. And he said, like, I love your work. Can we publish your work? And I was like, this is a scam. I don't know who you are. No. And that was when I was 17. And it turned out a year later, I realized that, no, wait, this little British publishing company is actually totally legit. And when I was at CCS, I started having these ideas for longer form work. But while I was a student, they wanted me to focus on like my studies and do the assignments. But me being rebellious was like, I don't want to do that. I want to do a graphic novel. Right. And so I got back in touch with them, and this never happens in the publishing industry. They were literally like, do whatever you want, we'll publish it. And so that's how I did this. Mm-hmm. And then I did this, and I was like, you know, I'm gay, and I've never actually made a story about like gay characters and about this. Like, I was sort of hitting that point in my life where I was ready to do that. And they were like, we love it, do it. And I did this in like 2 weeks. Okay. And I did this. And then I had another idea for a comic, and they were like, oh, and I did this. One after another. That's it.
I'm kind of blown away. 18, 19-year-old is like...
Well, but a lot of it has to do with Ricky.
Sure.
So Ricky is the guy who got in touch with me. He's a dear friend at this point and a great editor and very inspiring. And he really was like, he sort of pushed me to develop my ideas. And he was like, if you want to make something, if you have the start of an idea, he was like, I want you to chase it. Track it down. Figure out what it is. Right. And I did, you know? Yeah. Before, I don't even know if we had contracts for this stuff. Right. I just made these books. Yeah. And they made them, and they started flying me over to the UK, and I started going to these shows in London, and I was so scared. The first like book signing event I ever did, it was packed. It was for this book, and I threw up and cried, and then I went to it, and it was very scary. But, you know, come on, what was I supposed to do? Not throw up, not cry? Oh my God. Yeah. But, and then, you know, after the sort of whirlwind of these, I kind of slowed down, and I got an agent, and everything sort of became a little more official. Yeah. And that Spinning was my first book with a large publisher, Macmillan. first, second books. But I'm eternally grateful to them for saying to me, do what you want and we'll put it out there.
It's really rare.
It's rare, and they didn't take advantage of me.
Yeah.
And they continue. They are happy that I'm working with big publishers now.
Yeah.
You know, they don't take it as an offense. They are nothing but lovely to me. Avery Hill Publishing. Okay, just absolute gems.
We can't get these in the States, essentially.
They just signed with a new U.S. distributor, so I think you can now.
Okay.
Because like Barnes & Noble has them.
Like
and
a couple weeks ago, we clicked.
I wonder if it's taken that long for it to go through their system, but we'll talk afterwards and think something out.
Yeah. So you're 18,
I don't want
19, and you're doing
all this stuff.
Graphic novels. How did you think? I mean, I mean, obviously you say the competition helps, but
no,
most 18-year-olds that I meet are not that confident in their abilities to be able to produce an actual book.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think I was at that time particularly confident in my abilities in making something that would be a book, but I was confident in my ideas and in my storytelling enough to make the pages. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I really didn't think it was super real. Like, I really don't think I knew that this was actually going to result in a book that people would read.
Right.
I don't think it was a reality for me at that point, which is what made me able to do it. I was just kind of like this dreamy kid drawing whatever I wanted, and then this guy said he would make it into a book. Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that I was at CCS at the time, and I was noticing that I had something that not everyone there had. You know, for a lot of
book deal.
No, not that. Not
well,
that.
But that too.
I'm
just saying.
But what I mean is that I had a lot of friends who really struggled to sit down and create.
Oh, yeah.
And I, for whatever reason, didn't have that.
Yeah.
I felt totally comfortable sitting down and working.
Yeah.
And when I really noticed that, I thought, oh, this is something I should cultivate because I'm noticing this, and I think this is something that's going to carry me through. Mm-hmm. And I really did. And I lived alone at CCS. I had my own apartment. I was like an adult for the first time ever. And that apartment is just where all this happened. It became this little haven of creating for me.
Were there other people, roommates,
no,
anything? Just so you're
I was very solitary.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't know if I struggled to make friends at CCS, but it was maybe I was being distant. I was kind of on my own. I was really doing my own thing. And in a way, I think a lot of what I was feeling at the time got funneled into those 3 books and not necessarily to other people. I look back at it with a lot of fondness, though. Yeah. It was a really fun and exciting time to be making stuff. It was really good. Although I'm glad I have more social interaction. So,
Thesis Statement, as it were.
This year, spinning.
This is your 3rd year at CCS that you have to do the thesis, or
2nd year? It's only 2 years.
Okay, it's a 2-year program.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Because CCA here in San Francisco is a 3-year program.
Right, that's confusing, and they sound so similar. It's a 2-year program, and the reason spinning became my thesis is because I actually failed at doing it for my final project, my first year. What happened is at the end of my first year, Jason, our maternal teacher, was like, make the best comic you've ever made. And I was like, that is a lot of pressure. Oh my God. And I went home, and that was when it first hit me that I should make a comic about ice skating. I was like, I was a figure skater for 12 years. There has to be some content there, right? And I resolved to make this short comic, and I froze like I have never froze before. I've been talking a lot about how I don't struggle to make work. That was the one time. Every time I sat down to work on this little ice skating comic for just my end of year project, I couldn't do it. And I realized I was emotionally wrecked on this topic. I couldn't make a comic about skating. I decided I gave up. And I went to like my teachers and the students in my little crit group, and I was just this emotional wreck. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. I'm going to fail CCS. I'm not going to make this comic about skating. Like, I give up on everything. And everyone was just like, Tillie, whoa, take a deep breath. Make a different comic for your final project. Don't worry about it, and just think about this. Like, just take your time. And I took the summer between my first year and second year to literally just think and reflect, and I realized I realized I was terrified of my past. And then I realized that's really stupid to be afraid of your own experiences, and that I was going to conquer this fear of drawing myself skating. And that was why I resolved to have this be my thesis project, because I wanted to get over this fear. And I did it. Because there's a book, but it all came from this initial place of like total chaos and panic.
So the expectation for your final project is
at the end of the first year is
20
just
pages, 30 pages. I mean,
it's like 15 pages. It was originally, and it was supposed to be a comedy. For those of you that have read Spinning, it is not a comedy. Seriously, the original concept was like make a 15-page comic, and I was like, I'm going to make it about skating, and it's going to be like about funny things that ice skaters say. And I couldn't. Yeah, because ice skaters are ridiculous. They say the funniest stuff. Like, oh my God, her sow cow. Can you believe it? And I totally couldn't do it. Yeah. And actually, so my thesis advisor was James Sturm. Okay. We're really, really good friends. And he held my hand hardcore through this whole book because I needed help. I couldn't just make this book. I couldn't just start it. Yeah. And James had me start by just writing. Didn't even want me drawing because he knew if I was drawing, I'd try to like make it nice and perfect and make it amazing. Right. And he eased me into this project. Yeah. And I thank him at the end of the book for that, because it's just because I didn't know how to tackle a memoir. I've never done a memoir before. Yeah.
Well, and I want to go there, but what were you reading at memoirs? I mean,
none.
You hadn't read Persepolis. You hadn't read Mouse.
I had read Persepolis in school. It was a required reading. My school. I had read Persepolis and I'd read Stitches. Okay. And I had kind of tried to read Fun Home, but it had a lot of big words, and I struggled with that. But those were the only ones, really. And when I was working on Spinning, I made a point of not reading any memoirs because I'm very easily influenced. Sure. And so I didn't want Spinning to be influenced by any other memoirs because I wanted it to be mine.
Had you read sort of that because there's that one school which is sort of the realistic school, the Persepolis school. Yeah. And then there's the sort of the absurd school, Joe Matt and Chester Brown and that whole where they're taking the piss out of themselves, you know?
Oh, yeah. No, that never crossed my mind. I always approached it in the kind of more serious sense. And I think that's because that's my personality. But no, I really, and when I was working on this, I had no thoughts about any past memoirs I had read. Just did not enter into my brain. I think I was so wrapped up in my own experiences that any influences, they're probably there, but I didn't see them. Yeah. I didn't feel them there.
So blank page. And James Sturm says, write a script.
No, he didn't say write a script. No. Thank God, I hate writing scripts. I would have told him no, flat out, and walked out of the room. Okay. No, he told me to free write. Okay. He said, I don't want you to write anything in particular. I just want you to write what you're feeling. Write whatever you're thinking about. And it led to this 20-page document of just randomness. Some skating memories, some not skating memories, some current feelings, some past feelings. Interesting. And I can look at that document and pick out sentences and things that inspired like the most iconic scenes of the book. The book was there and I didn't even realize it. And what I did was I wrote this ridiculous document, and then I gave it to James, and I was like, James, this makes no sense. And he went through and he underlined things. Okay. And he said, this is important. And I remember looking at it and I was like, that's not important. He was like, Tillie. And I was like, what? He was like, you wrote it down. There's a reason you wrote this down. Think about it. Think about how it all connects. And then I had this realization that everything in my life connects to everything. Sure. Because you usually think of your memories as sort of separate entities, like that one thing that happened to me that one time, and that other thing that happened to me that one time. But actually, it's all you. It's all connected. And that paired with the free writing that James had me do all came together. And then he was like, okay, you can start drawing now. And then I started drawing. Okay. And I did. So let's circle in on that. So, yeah. So you have a document that's 20 pages, but now with underline. Yes. And stars.
So what do you do with this to then make what's the next step?
The next step was scenes. Okay. He said, every day it can be 1 page, it can be 10 pages. 1 scene a day, 1 memory a day. That's all you do. Don't worry about how they fit together. Don't worry if it makes any sense. And don't worry if it's relevant or if it's good. Just make 1 memory every day. And I did that.
Thumbnails?
No, final pages.
Final pages?
I go straight to ink usually.
Okay.
I grab my Bristol board and I just drew them.
Yeah.
And the first scene that I did is the one right at the beginning of spinning where I wake up and all those little panels.
Yeah.
And I get ready for practice. And plenty of those also didn't make the cut. But basically, I made all these scenes until I had about 100 pages of random memories. And then I brought that to James and I was like, James, look at my mess of a book. What do I do with it? And that was when we really started planning.
Okay.
And we were like, we laid them all out and we said, okay, this should go before this. You know, this is obviously a climax. This is obviously a beginning. This is terrible. Cut it. Mm-hmm. And then it was like you had a skeleton. And then it's like you add the fat, you add the muscles, you add the skin, you add transitions, and you start to build it in. And with that, I had like a real rough draft of the book. And then at that point, I hooked up for a second. And my editor, Connie Shu, and she is the one who took that like kind of weird rough draft and molded it into that.
Okay.
It was Connie at that point. James like passed the baton to Connie.
Okay.
And then we really went in with a fine-tooth comb and made sure everything that we needed to be there was there. And that every moment, you know, that needed to be connected was connected. And it took so long.
So when you went to First Second, how many pages were there? Say.
Oh, only about 150.
Okay.
And then with First Second, it became the 400 behemoth you have in front of you. Yeah, God, it's long.
It is really long. It's one of the things that when Gina sent me a copy.
Handed you through the mail.
I was like, wow, that's a really big book. You don't normally get a book that's that dense and that involved and good at the same time. You know, not there wasn't a lot of fat in here.
God, no.
Yeah.
No, it was so hard. We cut so much fat.
Yeah.
I was telling someone here earlier, I was Cookie Monster on ice. I think that's so funny. And my Cookie Monster scene didn't make it in there. There was no room for Cookie Monster. You know, there was so much stuff, so many experiences that really didn't fit. We really used every page.
Yeah.
To the best that we could. I mean, my God, but it was a team effort, it feels like. Yeah. I mean, I was the one doing, you know, drawing and dredging this all up, but it was the help of these people around me that helped me organize.
Sure.
And and just cultivate.
So yeah, I mean, I'm super curious about these intermediate steps, I guess, because I don't know. I talk to a lot of cartoonists.
Yeah.
A lot of cartoonists are like, here's my structure. And
hell no.
Plan. And I mean, it sounds like
I hate scripting. I hate planning. I hate thumbnailing.
Yeah.
I don't do it. Yeah. I still don't thumbnail to this day. It really bothers me. I plan. If you can do it, just do it.
Well, for some people, that's what their craft is, though. You know.
Yeah.
Dan Clowes on For Patience literally started on page 1 and went to page 400 all the way through in pencils.
Oh.
And then he went page 1.
No.
Sorry. First script before he did the pencils. Script. Then he did 1 to 400 in pencils.
It's so organized.
1 to 400 in ink. Then 1 to 400 in lettering, and 1 to 400 and I was like, that's insane. How do you do that?
He is
but
classical.
You're just as insane the other direction.
No, see, he's classical, I'm jazz.
Yeah.
It's just more freeform for me, and I feel no need to be linear.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
It'll be linear when it's done.
Yeah.
Also, I don't like being stuck in early stages. I like drawing the final art. That's my favorite part. And so I do whatever I have to do to get to that part. And it's to the point now where everyone at First Second kind of recognizes that. And whenever like I'm working on stuff for them, they're just like, normally we have people plan this, but we know you just want to draw. So like if you need to draw, just draw the goddamn book. And I was like, okay, I will.
So what's the editorial process like there? You've given her 150 pages of comics, not of script, of comics.
No, of comics.
Yeah. And so, do you know what her background is?
Connie?
Yeah.
She works for Roaring Brook, technically, which is the parent company of First Second, within the parent company of Macmillan. And she's worked on a lot of middle grade and young adult stuff, and she's worked on some memoirs, I believe. But
prose mostly?
No, she's worked on comics and she's worked on prose. But the reason I wanted to work with her is I had a phone call with her when she was considering spinning, and I just loved she talked really well about it and the ideas she had for the book and the direction she wanted to take it. It felt like she was seeing my vision. And that was when I was like, I trust you. Let's do this.
Because I mean, one of the things that really I'm super curious about.
Yeah.
As a person who's been in comics for 30 years at this point, are these people who have come into comics recently from backgrounds that have nothing kind of to do with comics. Like the editorial process at a Scholastic or a First Second is fascinating to me because,
it's different.
Because it's different and it's not from a tradition that I understand necessarily.
Yeah, it comes
and
more
yet
from
we
the
still
book
get
industry.
these great comics out of it.
Well, because ultimately the editorial process is catered to me. You know, at the end of the day, Connie knows that I am the master of this book. This is my destiny right here, and that she just needs to help me figure out what I need to say. And that's what great editors do, right? But it was hard for her at first because she wanted more like scripting and kind of that style of working things out, and we finally realized like that is not how I work. I have to just draw. And then you just have to edit. And that's what I did, is I just kept drawing, and I kept drawing new scenes and adding things. And we kept, you know, she kept kind of reorganizing and pointing things out. And then I'd draw it again. I did a lot of redrawing, which is not a big deal for me because I'm pretty fast. And I don't really mind. And that's not how everyone feels.
It almost sounds like reverse sculpture to me.
It's like sculpture. I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
The sculpture is like you have a block and you're trying to see the thing that's inside the block.
Yeah.
But here you're doing the reverse of that. You're putting out stuff, and then but this is the part that actually has to stay.
Yeah, it is because I at the end of the day, when I sit down to draw, I just produce something final.
Yeah,
I do. It's not something rough. I make something final, and then I pass it along to someone, and I'm like, can you just shine it up for me? Can you like you know, smooth out the edges and figure out the capitals and periods and commas, because I don't do grammar ever. Yeah, it is. That's the way I work. For whatever reason.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
I think I'm.
I like it. No,
I'm a little impatient too. I want to do the thing that I want to do. And I'm not gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for you to read a script.
Sure. So you do you so let's talk about the steps when you have a blank piece of paper in front of you. Are you like literally going straight to ink, or how are you? You're not thumbnailing at all.
No.
You're not really scripting.
No, I draw the panels.
Okay.
Then I do the text, and then I do the drawings.
Well, that's interesting. So you
I do that. So this will make sense because I often do the speech bubbles before I know what the hell is going to go in the panel.
Yeah.
So a lot of my speech bubbles are super weird because it's not planned. Yeah.
And you're 2x3 most of the way through almost all the way through the.
For this comic of mine, yes, I stayed pretty close to the grid.
Yeah.
Because that's skating.
Yeah.
Skating is measured.
Yeah.
It's very.
Is that comics too?
No, because a lot of the other comics I've done have been have very different kinds of layouts. My webcomic especially, like layouts are all over the place, and maybe more manga influenced.
Right.
But for spinning, it needed to be something controlled.
Yeah, it's interesting because you were talking about sort of the difference between classical and jazz.
Yeah.
And it's one of the ways that I think of comics is that the space is controlled, right?
Yes.
It's bum, 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 bum. There's a rhythm on the page. Page too. What?
You opened it.
I did.
Thank
you. Well, you drew it though, so that's how that works out. When you're creating, do you hear that rhythm? Yeah.
Well, and especially since I don't plan, I have to hone in on that rhythm of that scene, and it's all about like speeding up and slowing down, and the way the compositions work and the way the panels flow. And I start to get so involved in the process that I'm hearing it. I write all the dialogue as I'm doing the final art. So I'm literally like speaking the scene to myself in my head. So it's like I'm there. I'm experiencing it, I'm living it, and I'm having my art respond to that.
Yeah.
That's the only way I know how to do it. And I don't know how anyone plans dialogue.
Sure.
Like I have to write it while I'm in the moment. And that's probably why there's never any like commas or anything, because I'm so in the moment.
So you're clearly hand lettering.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I refuse to use a font still to this day.
You're one of the rare people who do that.
Yeah, my webcomic is hand lettered too, and that beast is like 700.
Yeah. You pen and paper?
Oh yeah.
All pen and paper.
All pen and paper.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And ink wash for this.
Yeah.
And the only thing that is digital is the yellow.
Okay.
But the rest of it's all traditional.
Have you tried doing digital?
I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate screens.
Yeah.
It really hurts my eyes. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. I like the texture of pen and paper. And I love when you finish a book, having a stack of pages that says, hey, look, I made you. This is my child. Mm-hmm. No, I'm so snobby about it. Mm-hmm. I really like working traditionally. My webcomic was the first thing that I sort of fully colored digitally. It was kind of a miserable experience. Yeah. The colors look great, but it's also like I didn't love doing it that way. Yeah. Which is why, honestly, in my sketchbook now, I've been doing so much stuff with marker and pen. I'm like trying to get back to that. Yeah. Traditional all the way. Yeah. I just, computers are so stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't mean to say the younger cartoonists, but you're really rare. Because most of them.
Am I?
Most of them that I talk to are like, oh no, I'm a Syntec all the way. I've
never used one of those.
Yeah, I like being able to hit Control C or Control X and just erase what I.
Yeah, what a crutch! You should learn to commit to your lines. At least that's my attitude. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I've been able to kind of have a confident line. Yeah, and people talk about noticing that the lines I draw, there's confidence behind them. Yes. There's an assuredness, and I think that has to do with the fact that I do not get to hit undo. Yeah. There is no little erase feature for me here. I have to stick with what I do. Yeah.
You straight to ink?
Yeah.
Yes.
Most of this, yeah.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I'll just draw a circle and I'm like, that is where the thing that I will draw will go. Okay. And then I leave and make a cup of coffee and come back and I'm like, what is this? And then I end up drawing something else because I completely forgot. Yeah. And that's my problem is if I do ever plan, I can't keep up with my plans. I have a new idea 5 minutes later, and I throw it out the window.
When you're working straight to ink, though, I mean, do you get distracted? Do you look at a page like that where there's just
that was such a fun page to draw.
Black, you know,
that was awesome. Yeah, that was a fun page.
So that doesn't slow you down. That doesn't stop you to try and do something like that.
Oh, it's like doing a texture. Oh, and the vending machine page is right after this. That page took a while. Yeah. Yeah, no, it totally does slow me down, but it is, I love spot blacks. Yeah. I love those solid things. They have such mood to them. Yeah. And it's really satisfying to fill the page. Yeah. Especially when I'm all about contrast. And if I've just done a scene with a lot of white space, I'm itching to find a moment to pour the solid black all over it just to create that difference. That creates a moment for people going from openness to black being everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's really weird to see you flip through that. I don't want to look at it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It's just weird.
It's because I wonder when you've got tones and you've got lots of black on a page like this and the yellow.
I learned a lot about spot black from CCS.
Okay.
We really studied it. And that was where I cultivated the skill of learning how to deal with large areas of black. Mm-hmm. And I also looked at a lot of Love and Rockets. Jaime Hernandez is an obvious example of great use of spot black.
Absolutely.
And that helped me learn how to do it. And once you kind of learn to master spot black, you can throw it in there. So whatever scene I'm drawing.
I agree with you, but I would say generally these are people doing 2 pages a day, not 13.
Oh, but it's a flow. 13.3, right?
Well, that was what the math calculated at, right? Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's a flow thing. It's a flow thing. If I'm, the first page you always do each day is always the hardest.
Sure.
And then with each page, it gets easier and easier. Yeah. It's all about, it sounds so cheesy, but it is about being in this state where you know what you're doing. And as soon as you do one page right, you can do 10 more pages right.
Yeah.
I know what a correct page looks like. I know what it's supposed to look like. And if it misses that, I know. And if it hits it, I know. And you just keep going until you hit it enough.
Yeah. What kind of hours do you?
I'm a morning person.
Okay.
I don't stay up late. This is very late for me, you guys. I'm dying inside. Seriously, I go to bed at 8:30 every night. And I, at least with spinning especially, I get up 4:35. And I work until... No, it's the greatest because check this out. If I get up at 5 and I start drawing, I can get all my drawing done by 10 a.m.
Right.
And then I literally take the rest of the day off. I literally go to the movies and do whatever I want. It's awesome.
So that means you're...
Get the work done at the beginning of the day.
So does that mean you're doing a page and a half an hour?
yeah, these pages are so fast.
So, and they're this, you said roughly this size.
Yeah, like yay.
Yeah.
I mean, so like my webcomic is full digital color and bigger pages. Those take longer, of course, but that much longer.
Are you cutting paper to size? Or are you buying?
For this book, I did have to cut to size.
Yeah.
It was so annoying because I think it was 11 by 14 pages cut in, something like that. And no one makes Bristol board in these like unique little sizes that I like.
Yeah.
I know. I need custom paper is what I need. Yeah, I'm constantly cutting shit up.
Fascinating.
Why?
Just your approach to comics. I love this.
Oh my God, thank you.
It's so different and it's so you, and I love it. I love this. I love this. You know, I've been really monopolizing the conversation. I'm sorry, because I've been having a really good time here. I'd like to open this to the audience, though. I mean, if you guys have any questions about the work in particular,
ask me anything.
Yeah.
Well, I maybe not answer.
In the back.
You said you go straight to ink time. Never mistake.
Well, there's two kinds of mistakes. There's mistakes I can live with and mistakes that I can't live with. And this book is full of mistakes that I can live with. There's tons of ears and noses and eyes and little arms that have plenty of like overlapping and incorrect lines. But you have to decide when you're going straight to ink and you make a mistake, you have to look at it and decide, is this a flaw that is actually going to affect what's going on here? Does this make it look wrong? Does this change things? If it doesn't, I leave it and I keep moving, because ultimately what's important to me is finishing, is completing a work. And the like even on the cover, there's plenty of hands that aren't perfect. There's plenty of lines that don't totally match up. And that's because I'm not planning and I'm going straight to ink. But it's okay. You have to learn to sort of be comfortable with it. And if there is a mistake that I really 100% can live with, I draw it again. And the thing is, if you do draw it again, you learn more, you know, like it's great practice. But I also think it's great practice to make a mistake and just deal with it, you know, because at the end of the day, people don't read this book and come to me and are like, Tillie, your ears, though, not super accurate. No one ever comes to me and says that, because the details are important to the story, but also not that important, you know, and I don't know how that works, but it does. No one is going to worry about it as much as you are. So try and adopt the way other people feel about it, which is that they really don't care. So yeah, I just sort of run with it.
Did you get any editorial notes on things like that, or did they again?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Rarely, like maybe one or two, just like drawings that they wanted some like a different direction. But no, not really. Because I think they knew if I was okay with it, then it was okay.
Makes sense.
You know?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you had a kind of go over this topic, and I took a break.
Yes,
and
I did. I had a few months of like.
And then now that you, how are you seeing it as kind of already discovery, like exploration yourself?
People come at it from all different kinds of angles. I at this point I get emails every day of people telling me like personal stories and how they feel about it, and it's very emotional, it's very intense. I mean, this book, I'm extremely vulnerable in this book, and people pick up on that, and so in turn they're vulnerable to me, which leads to these very intimate and wonderful moments, but it's also exhausting. And when I look at this book, I feel this, I have this weird relationship with it where I feel so much pride in having done it. And also I want distance from it, you know, because now it's for people to read, and it's not for me to read. It's not for me to really process anymore, because I've processed it. My processing was drawing it and making it. And now it's kind of everyone else's turn. And I'm sort of in this internal struggle right now where I'm on a book tour and I'm literally talking about this book constantly. And I want distance from it. You know, I kind of want to break, because it was so emotionally taxing, and it was so challenging, and it can be hard to kind of relive that constantly. But it's also extremely powerful. People just have responded in stunning, in just amazing ways. It's really been, it feels like I'm like living this book day to day. Every day it's some sort of new, crazy. I have very mixed feelings, you know, and it's very hard having a personal story out. It's very difficult. In interviews, people ask me like extremely invasive questions because they assume because this is a memoir that the rest of my life is up for grabs. So I've had to be very careful in establishing boundaries and saying, I will talk about the content of this book, and outside of that, it's none of your business. And it's hard also because like it's so weird to sell your story. It's weird. This is a product, and yet it is also a deeply personal part of my life, and it is also a product. And I don't really know how I feel about that. It's this crazy situation, you know. It's really very weird. I'm gonna do some fiction for a while.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, it's well. So you say you have lots of people writing you. Is it mostly adults?
No, it's mostly teens.
It's mostly teens.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, almost entirely teens. And then almost entirely queer teens.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a lot. I love it, and I also really want to like take a break from it because I mean every teen has like an amazing and also tragic story and connects with it, and it is so hard to connect with these teens, and also I don't know them, and also they don't know me.
Sure.
And it's just this amazing challenge. I just got an email from this teenager in France who the French edition just came out, and it's so long and beautiful and thoughtful, and I feel like I need like a few days to think about it before I can respond. But the thing is, like, I'm getting multiple of those every day, and I feel like I'm starting to run out of steam. I'm not going to be able to respond to everyone. I'm not going to always be able to connect, and it's a challenge. But at the same time, it's amazing because if I'm getting this much of a response, the book's doing very well, and it's really connecting with people. But it's whew.
Are you finding places where it's hard to even talk to them because they're experiencing something, going through?
Absolutely.
Like they're
oh
telling
God, yeah.
you a dark part of their life, or asking you for advice that you don't even know how to counsel.
That happens a lot, and I have to sometimes send what feel like curt responses, but what I also think are appropriate responses. A lot of teenagers email me now after reading this book and ask for advice on coming out of the closet. And every time I have to say, I cannot tell you how to do this because I do not know your situation. I do not know what's going to be safe for you. I really can't tell you. And this is something you're going to have to figure out on your own.
Are there general resources that you point to?
There are. And I always try and do that. And I also am always like really encouraging of like, thank you for being vulnerable with me and bringing this up. I'm sure that was a challenge. But yeah, and then of course teenagers who have had traumatic experiences email me, and that is I can't just, I have to say I'm so sorry. This is really intense, and sometimes I say you can always seek professional help. There's always, I'm sure their life can help you, but it's also like, oh my God, I don't know who you are. I can't help you. And it's
if you had known that going in,
I've not done this? No. I would have still done it because this is a challenge, but a challenge I can handle. And a challenge that is ultimately totally worth it because it's a challenge of that people want to be open with me and want to share with me. And I've lived a lot of my life. Obviously, spinning is often a very lonely book. I'm extremely lonely, and I'm not making connections with people. And now after this book, I have almost too many connections. And that's a beautiful problem to have, you know. And I realize I'm making a difference in a lot of these kids' lives, and that's.
There are certainly creators who I've talked to, Raina or Neil, who, just because they hit that level.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Where they're just hearing all of this, like, here's my soul, from.
I can't imagine.
And it's hard,
It's too much. I'm one person, Raina and Neil, they're all one people. Like they can't take all this. but media, books, comics have such a power to entrance people and change them and empower them that the creator ends up becoming the sounding board for that change.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable and exhausting.
Yeah. Did you at any point think that because this was a coming out memoir, that you were
gonna get pigeonholed?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of am pigeonholed because I'm a gay creator and and this is like an LGBTQ book, but it's actually totally fine because it's actually helpful because it really pushes the book to the right circles. So I'm sort of cool with it. Because I like that, you know, like GLAAD and all these people have helped promote it, and I'm comfortable with people being like, oh, this is a coming out book or this is like a queer book. It's like, hey, if that's the pitch you need to get it in the hands of queer people, let's go for it.
When in the process did you realize that was happening?
Not until much later.
Yeah,
I didn't even really realize the book was young adult until much later. And my publishers were like, this is a young adult book. And I'm like, what is a young adult book? And I was like, do I have to take the fucks out? And they were like, no, you can leave the fucks. And I was like, yes, I love young adult. Not until much later. I really had no idea. I wasn't thinking about it. And now all this stuff has come up and people are like, so tell me about creating a YA graphic novel. And I was like, wow, that is not how I approached it. Not at all.
It's really funny because Gina originally pitched this as part of the kids club. She wanted this to be a kids club book, and I'm like, well, the kids clubs are middle readers.
This is 14 plus.
But there's like 2 pages really. I mean, there's like, you know, the one page where you're looking at titties, and then another page where it's fuck, and other than that, I could have given it to a middle reader.
Well, and lots of younger kids do read it. But it does sort of freak me out because I worry about, you know, like it getting banned, parents complaining about it, getting in the wrong hands. But yeah, I
know some school district somewhere is going to ban it as well.
Oh, sure. Sure. Of course not. I mean, of course. Not of course not.
I know what you meant.
Yeah. No, it is weird. All that marketing stuff came up much later. And at that point, I was like, hands off. I don't know what a marketing is.
So you didn't feel any responsibility at that
No,
point?
God, no. Because it's not my job to sell this book at the end of the day. I will go to these events. I will promote it. I will say the words that I need to say. But it is the publisher's job to sell that book. It's not my problem. I have to draw comics. That is my problem. That is my job. And it's like a problem and a job. But no, I couldn't imagine trying to think about actually really selling it. I have to talk about it. I have to share, and other than that, just draw, do my thing.
You have one of you?
Someone have a question?
I can keep talking. I mean, it's not any problem. I can interview her.
Well, I can keep talking too.
We can. I think we can keep going for another hour at least. But I don't want to stop. It
says caffeine in it. Sprite up caffeine. Oh my God! Then I'm just high on life right now.
Charlie, you snuck in. Yeah, it's all good.
Join the party.
You got a question?
No, I'm.
Okay, all right. I'm just checking.
No questions?
Yeah, don't feel like you have to. I don't want to monopolize. Is what I'm trying to say.
I'm just curious. I don't know if this would be
cool. I can tell you.
Friends skating.
Yeah. They have, and I don't really know what they think about it, but I know they've read it. I'm not really in touch with the skating community anymore, kind of obviously. Skating is very much an all or nothing kind of situation. At least it was for me, where either you're in it or you're not in it. And as soon as I left it, I left it for real. But then at my first book event in Austin, some women from the rink came, and that was when I realized that all people at the rink are reading or have read this already. And yeah, I don't really know what they think, and I don't really want to know or care to know because they're not in my life anymore. But yeah, no, I think they've read it. They've read it, and I'm sure they recognize themselves. It's pretty obvious, even with the changed names. People know who they are. You know, there's nothing you can do. Pretty much, I mean, everyone in my life at this point has read it. It's been out since September, so it's already happened, and everyone is used to it.
Am I wrong, or skating is an age cut? I mean, not a literal one,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're not skating in your 20s.
No, not unless you're really good and you're really healthy. But yeah, it's like ballet and gymnastics. You run out of time. You run out of time, which is interesting because a lot of people don't skate anymore, have read this book, really connected with it, because they really relate to that experience of leaving something that has defined you for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, it's sort of a non thing. Everyone in my life has read it.
What coaches?
Just
You talk to any of them?
a little bit, not much. It's hard because they're not really in my life anymore.
Sure.
So even with this book, you'd think it'd be a kickoff for more, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's more just like, thanks for reading. Hope you're well. Heart. Seriously, that's kind of it. Which is honestly the way I prefer it. Because ultimately, it's my perspective. It's my story. It's not, they may be in it, they may be involved, they may feel close to it, but it really is kind of it's my thing. And they really did treat it like that, and I appreciated that. Because people can react very differently,
Have you heard from Scott McCloud, Jason Lutz?
Yeah. All full of pride and love.
Yeah.
James got in touch recently. Yeah, it's just been lovely. No, whenever I feel like I need like a pick me up, I think about the people I'm closest to and how much they love and care about this book and how proud they are of me for doing this, and it just, it makes me, want to cry with joy. It's just, the response has been, I mean, I want to say overwhelmingly positive. That almost implies that there's been a negative response. It has been so positive. It's been so good. It's been just wonderful.
Yeah. When we pick books for the book club, staff votes, and
oh, really?
It was
y'all voted for me?
It was.
Oh my god!
And it was uniform too. It was like everybody. It was their number one choice. Yeah. No, I mean, it was.
I'm so honored.
Yeah.
That's so nice. Aw, makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
It really does.
So what are you doing now? What are you working?
Ooh, I actually, there are things that I can't say. Maybe off the record we can talk later. Okay. But I'm really so not supposed to talk about these things.
You're like Batman. Sorry.
No comment. You're not getting anything out of me. I am working on many things. Things that will be announced soon. The biggest next thing is next fall. My webcomic, On a Sunbeam, is coming out in print. It's going to be bigger than Spinning, lots of color, big, beautiful book. Really fun, really intricate, a lot of world building. It's kind of my response to Spinning, where I needed to do something fun.
Yeah.
And that's coming out, and then all the other things that I'm working on, I have been condemned to silence.
I understand. It's fine.
But I will say that I'm working on some things that will be unexpected.
Oh, good. That's good. Batman.
I'm say.
You're writing Batman. She's writing Batman.
This is how rumors get started. This is how theories happen.
So, do we have more questions from the room? I have things for her, but I don't want to. Yeah.
If any of y'all have questions while we're talking, you just like.
Yeah, like throw your hand up and I will stop talking. I swear to God. Yes. Oh, great. Perfect.
Did you find it hard? Kind of. It's like. Did you find it?
Do that? Yeah, it was hard. It helped that I was far away. I was in Vermont for most of it, and most of the people in my life and in this book were in Texas. And that distance, you would be shocked how enormously helpful it is to be. You feel like you're somewhere else. And other than that, it was like just really talking to myself and talking myself through it and saying, you have to trust yourself. This is a book for you and not for these other people. You don't have to cater to them, and their experiences are not your experiences, and your experiences are valid, and your truth is your truth. It's just like saying all this stuff to myself on repeat. And ultimately I said it enough to myself that I believed it. And then I was able to do it. But that and the distance really helped. And the fact that I drew it so fast. I didn't have a lot of time to worry about stuff. Because it was like, I got to draw 13.3 pages today. So yeah, I managed to figure it out. But it's a different process for everyone. you know? And the way I approach a memoir is not the way most people will or should approach a memoir. That's what makes memoir so interesting to me, is that it should be approached in a style that is you, you know? This is such a me book, and, you know, your book should be a you book. Everything about it should scream you. And everyone's different, so it leads to a lot of different concepts.
Is memoir a thing that you to keep doing?
Hell no!
Yeah, this was your memoir.
This is it.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I'm in this career for the long haul, so never say never.
Sure.
But yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm good, because it's an anomaly. I really didn't want to do a memoir. It was that I tried to make a comic about skating and I couldn't do it. I got so frustrated that I couldn't do it that I had to make a memoir.
Right. Yeah.
So it was really just a risk.
It's interesting because, I mean, there's a couple of people that I've spoken to are on their third or fourth.
Ooh, how can you do that?
It's almost like
no.
That's now what they're doing, and they're having. It's almost like reality TV or something.
Yeah,
you know?
like your life. You're living your life every day for your content.
Yeah,
like as
what can you do with a
content.
comic?
You are content.
Yeah, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So fiction is like you want to do fiction now. You want to make some Harry Potter shit up.
Fuck yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Gryffindor for life.
Yeah.
Is there another Gryffindor out here? Yes. Yes.
Well, who's not? Come on.
Oh my God! Stop. You're probably like a Hufflepuff or something.
Oh my God.
Ravenclaw?
No.
You're
I would say myself, yeah.
Have you taken the Pottermore
No, I
quiz?
haven't. But
Okay, then you don't really know until you've taken the Pottermore
all right,
quiz.
yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, we won't go into all this.
Until we get a hat on the head.
But yes, the point is, no more memoir,
Yeah.
all fiction for me.
Yeah.
This fiction's so much easier.
Yeah.
So much more fun.
Comics full time. That's you.
I've been doing it full time since I graduated from CCS.
Yeah. You don't have a side job.
Nope.
You're
I make
paying yourself.
I make a full-time living making comics and a good time living
Okay.
at that. Not a scraping by, not dying every day.
Okay.
I do really well. To be fair, I supplement often with selling original art.
Yeah.
I had a Patreon for a while.
Yeah.
I sell prints. I do commissions, and a lot of the talks I give have honorariums.
Sure.
But that's kind of chump change at the end of the day. It's advances I live on.
Yeah.
And every time you sign a contract, you get a piece of an advance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works out just fine.
And you feel confident that that's.
Oh yeah, it's gonna last.
Yeah.
No, because the money's still coming in.
Yeah.
And I get good royalties from my Avery Hill books.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fine.
Yeah.
I'm not super panicked about money, which is kind of an amazing thing, considering that I draw pictures for a living.
Yeah. And again, at least half the cartoonists I talk to have a side job.
No,
I'm an animator.
It is a privilege, and I'm very fortunate.
Yeah. So maybe let's talk a second or two about web comics versus book advance comics. and because it seems to me web comics are not a thing that generally you make money off of.
Well, it's true, but you do make money when they become print books.
Sure.
That is the only way I ever see webcomics making money.
Mm-hmm.
Because On a Sunbeam has like a donate button. And to be fair, people are very generous and give surprising amounts, and that pays for the web hosting and gives me a little bit of money sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I'm giving it away.
Yeah.
I am giving On a Sunbeam a 700 comic to you for free. And no, it doesn't really make me any money, but it does make me money ultimately when it becomes a print book, and the exposure, I know we all hate that word,
Sure.
is fucking incredible.
Sure.
Hard to say to people, give me money and then read my comic.
Yeah.
And it is so easy to say to them, read my comic and then give me money.
Sure.
They're so much more likely to do it.
Sure.
It is so wonderful having a webcomic, but it does not pay well.
Right. So if that was the only way.
Oh,
you
I
were
could
doing
not. I
comics-
could not just do webcomics. I
Yeah.
have to keep. I have to, and I want to keep doing
Sure.
books. Books are my income. The webcomic was a passion project that ultimately turned out to be great marketing and to be a bit of a paycheck with the real book.
Mm-hmm.
But no, webcomics are like, you do not make money.
Yeah.
No way.
Because there was a period of time that was the advice was being given to young cartoonists was do a
I can't.
webcomic.
I do. Oh, and people do make money with webcomics. I can't
Usually
see.
for merch though, right?
Usually for merch, and I cannot see making a consistent living off of webcomics or a living that is enough to actually live. Like there's money you make, and then there's money you make that you can genuinely live off of. And I don't know how people do that with webcomics, but some webcomics are wildly popular and they have Patreons and they do great. But that's also, I also don't love relying on that.
Sure.
I don't love relying on people from the internet. I don't read webcomics. I don't really like computers. I don't really like technology, but I like having a webcomic only because it reaches a lot of people.
Okay.
It just, that's it. That is why I like it. That is why I like it as a medium. You can read my comic for free.
Are you handling all of your back end though, or
my dad is upside.
Okay.
So we built it together, and cool. Yeah, no, it's awesome. We designed it ourselves, and yeah, I pay for posting, and then that's it. It just sits there. It does its thing.
What do your parents think of you being a graphic artist?
They are super.
They get it?
Yeah. They they love my stuff. They're super supportive. They're a little shocked still, because I started kind of late, but no, they're in awe. It's a wonderful feeling.
Sure.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's really, really lovely. No, they're super. They're super into it. Every time I go anywhere with my dad, he's like, "By the way, my daughter, the cartoonist," and I'm like, "Dad, we're at Starbucks, okay?" Oh my God. No, they're just super proud of me. It's wonderful. Yeah,
that's really good.
I know. It's so embarrassing. Oh my God, but it's great. Yeah.
Questions, thoughts?
Media.
Yes, but I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to say. It's not animation, though. I don't do animation. No. I'm very musical. So, like I mentioned before, I play cello and I play some guitar, and I'm in the process. I'm learning to play violin right now. That's really fun, and I also sing. And music is like sort of my second, that other thing that I love to do, but that I won't ever share with anyone because it's like it's mine. But there are some other creative mediums that I'm interested in exploring in the years to come. But I can keep it to myself. Just a cartoonist to all of you.
Yes.
I don't really read comics anymore. I shouldn't lie. I don't read comics anymore, ever. They are like, I can't do it. It's all that I do every day. I have no interest in them, and I get nothing from them because I make them. I can only think about making them. I don't want to read. I find them a little boring at this point, for whatever reason. No, but I read prose, and I'm super into like your classic books now. I think writers are the coolest people ever. Oh my God. My favorite author is Tana French. She's this Irish mystery writer. I really love like all mystery and crime related books, or anyone with like a hardened female detective. Like, yes, please. That's all that I read. It's my favorite thing ever. Yeah, I love regular books now. I only ever go to bookstores. I'm like, comic stores, no thank you. Yet this is like my industry. I'm sorry. It's the truth. I can't help it.
Look at the camera and go to the comic shop.
Go to the comic shop. Don't follow my example. What can I say? Yeah, and I'm starting to like read more poetry, and I'm trying to like learn more from other mediums like film, all that. But yeah, no, I do not. I can give recommendations because people are constantly asking me in interviews, like, "What's your comic for 2017?" And it's like, like I can come up with stuff. But honestly, I don't read them anymore. Can't do it. But I love regular books. So great. They're good. Yeah. It's so funny. I made this huge flip.
No, I'm with you.
And at CCS, it used to drive some people crazy because everyone there is like reading comics constantly. They have this amazing comics library, and I was just like, I don't know. I can't. No, that's obscene. I'm not going to say that. Just kidding. Never mind. Don't mind me.
So maybe let's end this with there's someone out there watching this interview. Maybe not this week even. Maybe like 5 years from now.
Oof.
And they want to know I want to be a cartoonist. What's the thing that I should do? How do I do this?
Young child of the future. I have answers for you. I like looking at the camera. I don't look at the camera. I don't look at you all. The biggest and most important piece of advice I always give is finish what you start. No matter what you start, no matter whether or not it's good or it's bad or you don't believe in it, finish it. Because that is the hard part. That is the thing that most people cannot do. It is so easy and it is so fun to have ideas, and it is so challenging to do something with them. And if this is something you really want, if this is something that you think you can do, prove to yourself that you can do it by finishing. Get to that finish line. And I know there's that point in everything you do where you get to the middle and you don't like it anymore and you don't want to keep going. But the people who last in this career, the people who make amazing things, are the ones who get past that point. They keep going. And so I always say finish things, and I say across the board, you have to love yourself. You have to love what you do, whether or not you stick with it. You know, whatever phase of life you're in, whatever's going on, success will come with positivity and love. And I just think it's so important. So, you know, tackle things with ferocity and love. That's my advice.
Is there a length you should try to achieve in those, because you've got like a 400-page book here, and then you've got a 48-page book there.
Start that way. Yeah, so start small and build your way up. It's like
8 pages.
Well, no, but it's just like learning a musical instrument. You have to learn how to play the notes before you start playing full pieces.
Sure.
So start with 1 page.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages. That's what I did in high school. That is how I got here. And then 10, and then 20, and then 30. And if you can do that consistently, if you can start to make longer and longer comics, then you can do this.
Yeah.
You've already proven it to yourself. And I have found that 35 is kind of a magical number. And if you can make a 35-page comic, then you can make a 100-page comic. For whatever reason, there's like a hump you get past. That's enough pages that it's long enough that if you can get through that, you can just multiply and you can keep going.
Do you think that there's a strength in learning how to be compact as opposed to being expansive?
Yes, but I think there's strength in just the doing.
Oh,
and
sure.
if you make short comics and then you move into long comics, you're going to learn the strengths and weaknesses of both and how to make those shine.
Sure.
But yeah, there's
the thing that just worries me sometimes is we're graduating all these people from school and they're expected to be doing 200-page graphic novels.
Oh, well, that's ridiculous.
Right out of school, and I don't
that's
think
ridiculous.
Most of them possibly do that.
Well, and here I come back to 35. Have you made a 35-page comic?
Right.
And a lot of people haven't.
Yeah.
So you have to start small. And oh my God, that brings up another point of these people graduating right from school or like just starting out and expecting to be successes right away. First of all, success is different for everyone.
Yeah.
And success does not always look like a book deal. Sometimes success is just drawing a great goddamn tree.
Yeah.
So don't go into it with someone else's idea of success. Define success for yourself and then make a reasonable plan to get there. And it takes time. It really takes time. I did it kind of quickly, but I'm not everyone. I'm an anomaly, honestly.
You are.
And no one should be comparing their own careers to my version of it. And yeah, just take your time and do not live your life by someone else's measure of success.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
The October book was Spinning. This was Tillie Walden. She's really amazing, isn't she?
Oh, thanks.
Oh my God. I'm looking forward to see what comics you do coming forward, and yeah, I want to read some of your fiction, and yeah. You've got a long career ahead of you, I think, and I want to see every page of it. Spinning. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Let's hear a little. Yeah. Our next book, the November book, which most of you probably already picked up, 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. Tyler Boss will be here on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, and with Matt Rosenberg on video. I hope you guys can join us then. The following month, I'll let you know super early, the December book will be Charles Foreman's
I haven't seen this yet.
I am not okay with this.
Shit,
This
that
is
was
new.
great.
This is great. It's really good.
I love The End of the Fucking World.
Yeah,
It's a great book.
this is really good. And there's the book plate. It's a nice book plate, isn't it? Yeah.
Wow.
You guys are the first person to see that. So, yeah. And then I even know what January is, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't actually have the date for it. So that's what's coming up soon. And Charles Forsman is here December 6th. So it's going to be super early in the month because obviously December is always a hard month to schedule for. So I hope you can make it here next Wednesday, December 6th, talk about these books. This was Spinning. Thank you again. Another awesome book. Oh, so good. Thanks very much.